Hello everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to day 10 of our coding challenge. Wow, I'm so excited to be here today, and today we have another very interesting challenge to work on. So here's what we have. We have times table. So it says define a function times table that takes in a parameter num, right? That will print the result of every iteration with num. Let output be in the form below. So this challenge expects us to have this kind of output, right? Where we have 2 times 1 equals 2, 2 times 2 equals 4. We have 2 times 3 down to 2 times 12, 24, right? So this is the expected output we are expected to have. So the num parameter here is represent these two we have here. So that means if we should call the function and we place in 2 as our argument, we are having a 2 times table. If we place 3 as our argument, we should be having a 3 times table. If we also place 4 as our argument, we have a 4 times table, as well as any number we place in as arguments, right? So that's it. Okay, so what do we do first? We need to write the function first. Let's write the function, and the name of the function is times table, and also the parameter name is, let me use num. Actually I have been using num all this while, so I think for now we can still use num. Num is a descriptive name to be used, right? So like I said, if you want to name your variables, your functions, anything you want to name, make sure that they are very descriptive. And for the fact that I've been using num in other examples doesn't make it bad to use it in this example also, right? Because as long as it describes what we want to do. So the next we want to do is we need to use a for loop, right? We need to iterate through some numbers. Reason why we need to iterate is because we can see that we have 1 here, and then we have 2 here. We have 3 down to 12. That means there's an iteration. We are not going to hard code all these values. We are simply going to use looping to achieve them. So to iterate, I'm going to use the for loop. So I simply say for, and then we get this autocomplete. So we have index equals 0, index less than array, and all that. So instead of index, I'm simply going to use I, yes, and also I take away this line of code. I don't need it. Okay, so it says let I equals 0, I less than array dot length, then I plus plus. Now let me explain what these parts mean. So for the first part, this it says let I equals 0. This aspect, this part here, it represents the initialization, where we assign a value to the variable I, right? Then this next part here, it represents the iteration, where we iterate from one value down to a value we should stop at, right? And also this last part here, it represents the steps, the count at which we want the iteration to happen. So I plus plus simply means I is going to increase by 1. If we wanted it to increase by 2, we simply say I equals to I plus 2. If you want it to increase by 3, we say plus 3. If you want it to increase by 1, simply say by 1. So the short form for I equals I plus 1 is simply I plus plus, right? Okay, so now we said let I equal 0. Now this is what we are going to do next. We have let I equal 0. What is I? What are we trying to iterate? We are iterating from 1 down to 12, right? So I is what we are iterating. So I should not start from 0, because here we have the number starting from 1. So we change 0 and write and place 1 in it. Then for this next part here, we don't have an array in our question. So we remove it and we say let I less than none. So actually we want I to be less than or equal to none. What this means is that I is going to count from 1 down to the point at which num gets to. So if you say num is equal to 12 I is going to count I is going to increase down to the point where it gets to 12 and the loop ends, right? So if we place in 13 as our argument, let's say 13 is here, that means we won't want I to be less than or equal to 13. That's if we want to have this value as our endpoint. We are simply going to remove this equal to sign. So we know that I is less than 13, which means that I should stop at 12, right? So these are various ways of handling this. So in my own case here, I'm just simply going to say let I less than or equal to none, right? So that's that about that for loop aspect. Okay, so inside the for loop, what do we need to do? We need to console.log. Let's console.log the value of I, right? Let's iterate I and see what we get. Let's console log I, and then we also call the function, say times table. So let's say we want to have a we want to have our function to we want to make our function to be something like a two times table, right? So we simply just put two here, we save, and then we run. Okay, here we are having one and two. um it shouldn't be one and two, it's supposed to move from one down to 12. Okay, so what's the problem here? So I think the problem we have here is we are actually not supposed to put this num here. We are rather supposed to put a value here. So let's put 12 here. Then putting 12 here, then we save. And if we want a two times table, we put 2 here. Okay, so let's run this. So this is not actually the implementation of the challenge that I am just trying to test some other variables. So let's just see how this works. Okay, so now we see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down to 12. So all these are the values of I, but we want our output to be in this form. So what do? We start with num, because num represents the values here, while I represents the values here. So we say num times, but this times should be in string. That means it should be in quotes. So what we do is we say num comma quotes. Inside the quotes we put times, then we put some spacing. Then after that we put a comma, and then we put I, and then after that okay, so after we put the comma, after we put I, we put a comma, then we put another quote for equal to, and then we add the space. Then after this also, we multiply num and I together. We say num times I. So I save this, and let's run this code to see what we get. Okay, so we have 2 times 1, 2, 2 times 2, 4, 2 times 3, 6, down to 2 times 12, 24. Yes. Okay, so that works actually. But putting these strings and all that, there are other ways we can still work this out, though this works also, but let's try some other ways. Let's use the string interpolation. That means we want to use the template literals. So we just comment on this, and then we write another console log. And I think this method is simpler. So we use the backtick, and then we simply just say num times I equal to, then we now use the dollar sign and the curly braces. Inside the curly braces, we say num times I. So I think this is kind of neat also. So let's run the code again and see if we get a better or we get the same answer. Okay, so here we're having num times I equals 2, num times I equals 4. Okay, so something is still missing. So what we can do is instead of writing num as a string and I as a string here, we place them also inside this template literal like this. So we simply just say dollar sign curly brace num. You do the same thing for I, dollar sign curly brace for I. So let's try this again. Let's save this and let's run again. Okay, so now we have 2 times 1, 2, 2 times 2, 4, 2 times 3 is down to 2 times 12, 24. Okay, yeah, so I think for me, this using the templates literal is kind of neat and it doesn't really confuse one that much. But adding things like this works also, but hey, it might get confusing and it almost got me confused also. So I think this works well. So if we wanted our timetable to be, let's say, 5 times table, we simply just put 5 in here. We save and then we run our code. So here now we have 5 times table. We have 5 times 1, 5, 5 times 2, 10, 5 times 3, 15, 5 times 4, 20, down to 5 times 12, 60. So I think our code works well. Yeah. So this is how I've implemented my own. This is how I implemented the solution to this challenge. I know there are other ways one can actually do this. Some would prefer using the while loop to achieve this. Yes, the while loop also works fine. So I think you can try other ways too and share your code along, share your code with us. Let's also see how you've worked yours as well. So I'll be very happy to see how you worked your own if it's different from mine. Okay, all right. So we've come to the end of today's code challenge and thanks for having me around and see you tomorrow. Bye.